It is Tuesday, October the 15th. Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks for joining us. High pressure is on the way back into New Zealand, and it's been a while since we've talked about that. On the animated wind map, it's still pretty windy in some areas in the bright green shading here, through Cook Strait, around Auckland and parts of Northland, and also along the eastern side of the North Island, places like Mahia Peninsula exposed to that windy weather, and maybe even parts of Banks Peninsula and Otago Peninsula. But inland, the southerly flow you see here fades out around the South Island tonight, and frosty weather is expected. High pressure is just out here to the west of the North Island, and another zone off to the southwest of the South Island. Those two areas of high pressure merge over the next 24 hours. And so by the time we get to lunchtime Wednesday, you can see here one big high pressure zone stretching all the way up to the subtropics, all the way down to the sub-Antarctic region, and the high itself parked just off the coast of Fiordland and Stewart Island. So a cold start around Wednesday morning for the interior of the South Island. Frosty weather is expected through a number of regions inland. Coastal areas not so much of a risk. In the North Island, still a little bit too mild, also a bit of a breeze still blowing through, and cloud along the eastern side of the North Island brings a couple of showers around Mahia and Gisborne, maybe curving around as an easterly or a southeasterly for Great Barrier Island and the Bay of Islands. A couple of showers possible there. It's not much. The pale blue means just the risk. So after the cold start, temperatures lift up in the afternoon. Back to the mid-teens if you're through the central parts of the South Island, even to the 20-degree mark, close to it or even above it, around northern parts of the North Island, especially inland areas like Waikato. So by lunchtime Thursday, the high has drifted across the lower South Island and is now parked east of Canterbury offshore, but it's still pretty much protecting the country. Maybe a couple of isolated showers from Bay of Plenty to Northland, and I do mean isolated. There won't be much, mostly dry weather still continuing on Thursday. With the high moving further into the North Island though, there may be some frosty weather, especially along the eastern side inland of the North Island. We're not talking about major frost to low-lying areas, but slightly higher elevations, that risk is certainly there. So the end of the week, the high is parked out to the east, right over the top of the Chatham Islands. To the north of New Zealand, we've got this storm forming just south of Tonga. It's worth keeping an eye on. As I said yesterday, it's going to drift close to New Zealand. For now, the modelling shows it remaining offshore. We'll show you what the Monday forecast looks like in a moment. But for now, that is a system that's going to drop southwards, and you'll feel that easterly flow between the departing high and this incoming subtropical low. Out in the Tasman, that other low pressure zone that's been there for a few days still is there, but it pretty much falls apart. But we do see this line of rain or showers coming into the west coast and maybe around Taranaki, but otherwise most of the country's dry, and there'll be a bit more of a northwesterly flow coming into some spots, or at least a northerly quarter wind, because it might be northeast here and there, northwest in other places, but generally speaking, milder weather. And yes, that's a storm system coming out of Australia, affecting Victoria, Tasmania, New South Wales, in particular those areas. That system is coming our way. So by Saturday, the high still over the Chatham Islands, the storm to the north of New Zealand dropping closer towards us, and the stormy-ish low coming out of Australia moves closer to us. But this high pressure belt is really big. It stretches down towards Southland and stretches all the way out to the Cook Islands. That is a huge system. The shape of it encourages that low to move towards the North Island, but the Coriolis effect encourages it to drag it southeast. So this system is kind of going south, pulled between two different forces, and it's tracking southwards directly into that high pressure zone. So on Saturday, pretty settled around the country, but the little areas of pale blue you see show the sign of some afternoon showers that might start to bubble up during the day. On Sunday, the storm from the subtropics moves close to New Zealand. Now this is quite a deep low. It's into the 990s, might even be into the 980 air pressure zone. So pretty strong winds around it, gale force winds between the high over the Chathams and the low here. Now the high pressure zone starting to break apart a wee bit in the middle here, with one zone towards the Cook Islands, the other one just south of the Chatham Islands. So on Sunday, this storm could be at its biggest, starting to drive some swells into the eastern side of the North Island. Good news for surfers, not so good for, if you're not if you're someone who likes to go swimming at this time of the year, just be aware that this could be a bit dangerous with the swells coming back in. Not many people swim at this time of the year, but you never know. I guess the ones that do are probably quite strong. But just be aware there could be stronger rips and tides around that eastern corner of the North Island. Otherwise, not a lot to talk about. Northerly quarter winds coming through. So it looks kind of ominous, but then you go to Monday of next week and you can kind of see that low in the north is starting to fall apart. This one here weakening now and sort of drifting a little bit to the east. The high, or that high pressure belt, seems to be breaking in half. The low really wants to cut a line through it. So that's good news for New Zealand. It helps encourage that system to move away from us. But now that other system out of Australia is heading towards us. So we're going to have to wait a couple more days to kind of figure out what is going on next week. It certainly looks messy as we go through next week. So in short, make the most of this high pressure zone that is with us through until the start of next week. We'll see you again tomorrow with our next update.